Roland Hodler, welcome to the SNIS remote studio. Together with 5 other colleagues, you have recently written an article about the geography of Chinese aid, which has received one of the International Geneva Awards for 2020. We'd like to invite you to tell us a few words about the main findings of your articles and generally what it is about.
This article is about the way China is allocating its foreign aid within African countries. So there is a large literature looking at how donors allocate foreign aid, but they typically look at Western donors and they look at the allocation across countries. So what we do differently is we look at the allocation within countries, so to which areas foreign aid goes, and we're focusing mainly on China, but we're also looking at the World Bank. So the idea is to see what happens when China decides to give aid to a particular country, to see which regions benefit. And the motivation for that is that China has this principle of not interfering into domestic matters in other countries, and at the same time we know that in many African countries, political leaders engage in clientelism or ethnic altruism, or however you want to call it, basically meaning that they would favor their own ethnic groups or their own regions where they are coming from. And that's exactly what we're looking at. We're looking at how whether regions are getting more foreign aid from China when the current political leader is coming from this region. And we indeed find such an effect, which we think shows that this approach of China of not interfering in domestic matters and kind of giving aid as the recipient country government proposes, that this indeed leads to ethnic or regional favoritism when it comes to aid allocation. Interestingly, we do not find such a result when we are looking at the World Bank. So it seems to be something related to Chinese aid that makes it more likely, more easily usable for such favoritism of this kind.
And can you tell us how your findings can be relevant for future policy?
I think there are a couple of dimensions there. One is, of course, it is useful to know what actually is done and what are the outcomes of the policies implemented. I mean, the World Bank has a set of proceedings, but it's hard even for them to know whether they end up actually favoring certain regions just for political reasons. And maybe it's interesting for them to know that the current approach is sufficiently strong that this is not happening. At least it is not happening in the sense that the political leader's birth region benefits. At a more general level, I think it informs this debate that is quite prominent, this debate about country ownership of developmental policies. So this idea that donors shouldn't tell the recipient country governments too much about how they should use aid and how they should develop their country, what development policies they should choose. And we're kind of showing that if you take such an approach, not interfering at all into domestic matters, that this may actually be misused by political leaders, especially those, of course, that are not close to being benevolent, which happens to be the case for quite a few African countries.
Roland Hodler, thank you very much for granting us this interview, and we wish you all the best.